Hello everyone, Happy New Year. Why am I here today? Well, a few days ago, our brother and friend, Franklin Cujoe, disclosed on his social media page that he was living with a moving disorder called Parkinson's. And he hashtagged it Parkinson's awareness. Since then, I have received so many messages, so many phone calls asking me what is Parkinson's disease. So today I'm here to explain. I've also reached out to my dear brother Franklin, reassured him that I'm here to support him in whichever way he deems necessary. I will support him. What is Parkinson's disease? But before I start, I need to preface this, that I'm going to try to explain Parkinson's disease, which is a highly technical medical field with a lot of medical terminology. I'm going to try to make that less technical. So I'm going to try to use words that are less technical so that, and break down my words, no book long words and no rough PD, so that all of you watching this video can understand the basics of what I'm trying to say, that you don't need to be a medical person to understand what I'm saying. I'll do my best, so bear with me. So Parkinson's disease is what we call a neurodegenerative disorder of the brain. It affects the central nervous system. The central nervous system is basically the brain and its stem and everything about the brain. Parkinson's occurs basically in an area of the brain that is at the base of the brain, so the bottom of the brain before the brain stem, and that area is called the substantia nigra. Basically, the neurons or the cells in that area normally produce a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical messenger. So once the chemical is released, it sends the signal to the brain. And what the signal that the brain gets is for the brain to do smooth, purposeful movement. What I'm doing now with my hands are smooth, purposeful movements. I'm using my hand and this movement that I'm making with my hands to emphasize my speech. So that for emphasis, my hands are moving to emphasize what I'm saying. That is the smooth, purposeful movement that the dopamine and the signal in my brain is telling me now to make these smooth, purposeful movements. Once those cells, or what we call the neurons, break down or die, that dopamine is not produced. So that signal doesn't come. And if that signal doesn't come, what happens is the body can no longer, or the brain can no longer get the signal for these smooth, purposeful movements that I'm making. In its place, it is replaced with rigidity. So the body is rigid, or the muscles are rigid. They don't move. They're not smooth. They don't move. Then there's tremors. Tremors are a little shaky where you shake. And at first it starts really subtle, so you might not notice it. But you notice that when you pick up like a bottle of water, or you have like a glass, and then once you hold it, you realize that your hands are shaking. And then it starts smooth, and then it can get more bigger. And I don't want to use all the medical terminology here. There's something else called bradykinesia. Bradykinesia is like slowness of movement. So when at first you used to just tie your shoes, or you used to just dress and button your shirt and do all that stuff, now it becomes very difficult. Everything is slow, much slower, because the signal is not there. So tying your shoes, dressing up, buttoning your shirt, and everything else becomes very difficult. So it often leads to disability in activities of daily living. Then there's postural instability. So your posture is not stable. So you're off balance, and then it leads to you're prone to falls and other things. Then you have movement difficulty in your gait. When I say difficulty in your gait, when gait, G-A-I-T, is how you walk is your gait. So at first you just take a step, and you take a step, but now you can do that. So before you even take the first step, your leg will shake a little bit, fascination, before you can make that one step. And then at some point, you can't even pick up your feet at all. So what you do is we call the shuffling gait. You shuffle and you kind of move around. And eventually, sometimes it leads to disability of you can walk and then you have to be in a wheelchair. So it's a debilitating degenerative disease. What are the risk factors? Some of the risk factors really are age. It's usually above 60 and 65 and something like that. But then there's a genetic or hereditary component. The hereditary component is when it runs in the family. And so, maybe your uncle had it, your dad had it, your grandfather had it, and you can trace that thing through the generations. And so hereditary is a big factor, and also environmental. There's lots of environmental things that can lead to Parkinson's. So those are some of the major risk factors. Of course, there are other risk factors, but again, I'm trying to narrow this discussion or this explanation to those who have asked me, and I want to make it very basic. Diagnosis is very difficult also, only because of how the disease starts or the process starts. Sometimes people think it is often misdiagnosed because of how it starts. Sometimes people think you have a stroke. Sometimes they misdiagnose it and call it, they think you're even drunk. Somebody might say, oh, that person is always drunk because they're always shaking. And it not necessarily. Sometimes the person doesn't even drink alcohol or is not on any substance, but it is a movement disorder. So people notice those things. Treatment. There's no cure. What it is there's treatment that we can give to slow down the progression of the disease. And there's medicines that we can give, like dopamine itself, like dopaminergic dopamine type medicines to replace the dopamine that is not there. So there's various types of medicines. I don't want to go into the pharmacology of all of that, but there are medicines that can help. There's also ancillary things that we can do, like exercise, like physical therapy, like speech therapy, especially when it's affecting your speech. And there's also occupational therapy to make you maybe keep the muscles moving and prevent atrophy, and then also prevent more disability. So basically, that is the basics of Parkinson's. What is the data in Ghana on Parkinson's? I don't really have that data. I've spoken to a few neurologist friends who haven't given me the data yet. And also, I don't know the incidence and prevalence. When I say incidence, I mean the new onset, people are newly diagnosed. And prevalence is those who are already living with the disease. I don't have the incidence and prevalence of Parkinson's. However, I do know that there are people with Parkinson's here in Ghana, and I know there's a support group in the Ashanti region, and there's also another support group in Accra. I don't know the numbers yet. So I'm still searching to see what is the actual data. Thankfully, through President John Dramani Mahama, whom we should continue to thank for this wonderful, I think so far, in terms of health, we could never ask for a better person for the health of Ghanaians. Mahama Cares might be able to be some solution to those living with hereditary and genetic diseases, the chronic, non-communicable diseases. Because, okay, I'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit also about Mahama Cares. So what is Mahama Cares? We've heard it so much. It's a Ghana Medical Trust Fund bill. It has been passed and it's in implementation now. What it is a fund that has been put aside to support people with non-communicable diseases. We realize that 42% of all Ghanaians, of all deaths in Ghana, is due to 42% is due to non-communicable diseases. So high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, hereditary cancers, those make up the 43% of all mortalities in Ghana. And so the idea is to support, to bring down those numbers, because of course it leads to a lot of deaths, as I said, and also disability. So Mahama Cares is a fund that will support those people as they go through their treatments, and also not only the money or the fund itself, but also to fill in the gaps of the treatments. In other words, where are the mammogram machines in the country? Maybe we need one in this region and that region, or currently, as we know, the issue with setting up the cardiac catheterization centers. Those are for people who have had attacks, and then we need to go and open up the vessel so that the blood can flow back and prevent the heart attacks. So we're doing cardiac catheterization centers. We're going to build 3 of them in country. I believe this week we started with or cut the sod for the one in Tamale. So that is the gap in our health delivery system that Mahama Cares is coming to plug. So Parkinson's may fall under the hereditary genetic type, so that they can also be supported through this fund. So it is a good thing. So I want to take this opportunity to thank President Mahama for this wonderful policy that has already started, and we're beginning to see the fruitfulness of this. So thank you. We are grateful. The next thing will be the free primary health care that is coming up soon, and that would also be the most preventative and promotive at the basic levels, so that once we catch these diseases early, then we can prevent complications. So basically, when we're talking about medicine and we're talking about health, the one thing that is most valuable in all of this, in everything I've said, is early diagnosis. It's only when your disease is diagnosed early is when you have the more treatment modalities available. Only when you have early diagnosis can we prevent complications. For instance, you have high blood pressure. When we diagnose you early, you can prevent all the complications of kidney failure and everything else that comes with high blood pressure. When we diagnose you early with diabetes, we can treat it, so you can prevent you when you have the amputation, you're in the wheelchair, you have the sores, and all the other complications, bad complications of diabetes. So it is only in early diagnosis that you have a trump card. I hate to use the word Trump, but that's the only word I could come up with right now. So early diagnosis is everything. So if you're feeling something, if something is not right, trust your instincts. Go to the hospital, let the doctors evaluate you and tell you that, oh, it's nothing, or it is something. The earlier we diagnose, the better for everything. The earlier we diagnose, the less likely you're going to die from that disease. The earlier you diagnose, the more likely you're going to be healthy from, even with that disease, it can be controlled. So early diagnosis is the one thing that when you have everything. So please, this year, 2026, we're already in January, first week in January. Please, all of you watching this video, go to the hospital and ask for a well person check. What is a well person check? A well person's check is when you go to the hospital and say, I'm not ill. I don't have anything, but I need to check my health. The well person check will perhaps give you several things. They will check blood pressure, blood sugar, vital signs in terms of the rest of your vital signs. Then you will have a physical exam. Once you have a physical exam, we'll also do your history, which is why you're here. We check your family to see if there's any hereditary diseases. What you do, is it like some sort of a repetitive work so that there's some inherent problems that can come with it. We do all that. That's a full comprehensive check. Then after we do that, we send you for some labs, basic labs. If you're a woman, you definitely need to get a clinical breast exam. If you're a man, you need to have a digital rectal exam. The clinical breast exam is part of your comprehensive clinical exam, the physical exam. The digital rectal exam is part of your physical exam. They'll check everything in, plus a digital rectal exam. So for a woman, they'll check everything plus a breast exam. We're looking for breast cancer, and for the man, we're looking for prostate cancer. Once you finish all that, we look at your labs. If there's nothing wrong with it, we'll tell you everything is within normal limits and your physical exam was fine and we don't see any red flags in your history. Then you come back next year, same time, January. You can pick the same date and you go back for another well person check. If we find anything in this year's exam or any red flags, then it escalates to the next level. Then we do more investigation and see what the issues are and how best we can help you. That is the only way we can remain healthy and have good lifestyles. Whilst we're at it, at least try to exercise. If not once a week, try to exercise at least once every 2 weeks. Everything in moderation. That's my Christmas message. Again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you. I would like to tell my brother Franklin to hang in there. It's not the end of the world. There's a lot of things we can do to support him. Thank you. Thank President John Dramani Mahama for great health system that we're enjoying now. And thank you everyone for listening and watching this video. God bless you. Thank you.